in the back of modernism and all this international law to make profit out of his own ungenerosity to humankind.
There you go. So of course, by day, I would make cartoons for small children. And then when 5 o'clock came around, I would work on this until I collapsed. And then overnight on Disney's computers, this would be rendering. So, which I guess that's somewhat subversive, but it was just whatever I had available at the moment. It's interesting because, you know, the title of this panel, of course, being the intersection of hacktivism, culture jamming, those sorts of things. And it's interesting as you hear everyone talk about the work that they do and what they're involved with, you can see there's sort of a spectrum. Everyone's interested in different things along the way, different ways in which this stuff works. I tend to find myself on the sort of art end of the spectrum rather than the activism end of the spectrum. I'm just one of those people that's sort of curious to see what happens when you stick two things together, when you put something and try to make it work with itself. It's the same impulse that you saw in the KPIX piece, after all, you know, equating Manson with, you know, the situation with Negative Land is certainly, you know, all about making some sort of juxtaposition between the two things and creating some sort of connection. But it's, of course, a different mindset that gives you that versus the work that we've done here. So it's kind of like trying it on for yourself. What will happen when I put these things together? What will happen if I put different sources together and try to get some sort of effect out of it? So after working with Negative Land on that piece, I think it was after, wasn't it? Or somehow kind of the same time. It was all sort of happening at the same time. I became involved with the Snuggles Collective, as you can see the graphic here displaying. This, of course, was a mailing list that was originally devoted to discussing the works of Negative Land, but and still does that to this day, but began to change somewhat as the members of the list became more and more interested in the subject, more and more interested in creating work themselves, more and more interested in doing projects of their own. And there had been a few sort of list-oriented projects before, tape trading, cassette tapes made of everyone's work that had been passed around. But eventually, the Droplift project came into being. Droplifting is, of course, a pun on the word shoplifting. Richard Holland of the Institute of Sonic Ponderance coined the term when he would burn his own CDs of work that he had done, then go into chain stores and drop them into the bins, ostensibly so that someone would come along and find them and hopefully attempt to buy them. They, of course, had no barcodes or prices or anything on them at all, but, and Richard would sort of like scatter these like seeds, not really knowing what would happen to them, where they would go. Sometimes it would be a postcard in them. People might send the postcard back to him saying that they found it somewhere or got it somewhere. And we thought, this is the perfect thing. This is the perfect device for distributing our work. Interesting to note because it simply can't be done anymore. Time has changed and we don't really have the chain music stores that we used to. It's not really quite as possible to go in with a few CDs in a, you know, in a purse or a bag or a pouch in your pocket, and we'll put them back in the bin. I don't think, can you do that anymore here? Does anyone know?
Not really. I think also another aspect of it, speaking as someone who contributed a track to Droplift and also my servers host the Droplift website in which the album and the artwork are available for download, actually. You can check it out. Another thing I think that has changed is also just sampling in general. And Mark touched on this briefly. Sampling in general is less radical these days than it was at the time, and we constructed all of the songs on the CD by sampling commercial advertisements, pop music, and sort of at the time, this is when sort of file sharing was just about starting to spring up, and all of these things with sampling and the courts and everything were happening. And I think that has changed also to where now there's public, you can get mashups of Britney Spears and all this other stuff. So it's definitely changed in that regard also.
But I'm going to disagree on that a little bit, though, because both those guys were talking about, okay, it's easier, that's true, but a funny juxtaposition is still a funny juxtaposition.
Yeah, I don't mean to,
and not everyone can do that. So it may be that the tools are more common, and it may be that everyone has them, but interesting work still rises. And in fact, the democratization of sampling tools, if anything, has allowed more people to try their hand at it. I mean, I still think, yes, we have 100 billion, 1,000 million videos on YouTube. How many of those are videos that we would watch again and again?